Hello everyone and welcome back to Lucky Loaders 15, where I'm going to be giving you my eye catchers of the week. I'll be going through a few horses that caught my eye and ones that I definitely think will be worth putting in the tracker for the future, especially as well over the next few weeks and months. They're definitely going to contain a lot of national hunt horses as we're getting closer towards the proper national hunt season. Now obviously we've got the Chepstow Persian War meeting later on this week, so there's going to be plenty of horses making their seasonal reappearance, and it's definitely a time you want the notebook out and looking at certain horses and seeing how they're performing and what potential targets they might have in the future. So I'm looking forward to sharing the eye catchers I had last week with you guys. But before we begin, if you're liking the videos, please remember to give them a thumbs up. Also as well, if you've been watching my channel for quite a while and you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit the subscribe button, because it means every time I upload a video you'll get a notification saying that I've uploaded one, so make sure you do that if you haven't done so already. And also as well, if you don't follow me on Twitter, make sure you do, where my handle is at LuckyLoader15. So enough of that, let's get stuck in and let's see what horses we shall put in the tracker. Now the first horse that caught my eye last week, well, it's actually going to be a pair of mares that ran in the same race on Wednesday the 30th of September, which was at Bangor-on-Dee. And the first horse I'm going to be starting with here is Wynn, who won that race at Bangor for Alan King. Now Wynn had shown quite a bit of ability on her career starts before making her hurdle debut. She had a lot of good bumper form, including winning a bumper at Uttoxeter on her debut run, which came on good ground. She also as well showed a little bit more ability when finishing second in a listed mares bumper at Huntington, so she was always probably going to make an exciting hurdles recruit, and she kicked off her campaign in really good style, winning, like I said, at Bangor-on-Dee last week on Wednesday. And I thought she did the job very well, and despite maybe not being too much in behind, I think she did it, like I said, really well, and she jumped well and she travelled into the race, and probably on ground that was against her. I don't think she'll be definitely running her career bests on soft ground. It was absolutely bottomless at Bangor. Plenty of rain around the UK last week, and Bangor definitely had it in abundance. So I think that was quite an impressive run, despite being probably on not her best ground. I think if she encountered maybe some good to soft ground or a good ground, she would definitely probably improve further for that. So I think it was a really impressive debut, and she's definitely a mare I want to be keeping on side. The other mare that ran in that race as well is the one that finished in third place for Katy Price. That's Rose, something like that. Rose. Probably got the name wrong there, but yeah, this horse is trained by Katy Price, who's not a trainer a lot of you might not be familiar with, but she does well with some of her horses. And this mare ran, like I said, in that race at Bangor-on-Dee to finish in third place. If you look back through some of her form, she had quite a few nice efforts in some bumpers, including behind White Hart Lady at Aintree last season. So she's shown a good level of ability in the bumper division, but I just think that this season she could be one to maybe improve in mares handicaps. She's not going to be setting the world alight in listed or graded events, but I think she's definitely a mare you want to keep on side this season, and I'll be interested to see how she gets on, and she might crop up once or twice at a big price. So yeah, Ringer Rose, I think she's definitely a nice mare, and I think that was a nice little race we saw at Bangor on Wednesday. Moving on to Thursday now. Now the first horse I'm going to give you that caught my eye on this day was Wayfinder for Rebecca Curtis. Now I actually put up a Wayfinder as a bet on my YouTube channel. We got the each way profit on his promising chase debut where he finished in second place at Foss Lass. And Rebecca Curtis, I've often said it on my videos and also as well in my blogs that she's one of my favourite trainers in the National Hunt game. She doesn't have too many horses, she has a small string, but she really gets the most out of them. She trained the Stayers Hurdle winner last year with Liz Nagana. She's had some nice horses in the past as well, such as Joe Farrell, you might remember, was a big win for us a couple of years ago when he won the Scottish Grand National. So she's had some nice horses during her time, and I think this horse is definitely going to be one to follow this season. Now if you look back at some of his form last year, he ran pretty well over hurdles, and the last time we saw him before he ran at Fosslas on Thursdays when he won a race at Hereford over hurdles and bottomless ground, and I think that's where we're going to be seeing him to best effect over stamina trips, and also as well when there's plenty of juice in the ground. And I thought it was a really encouraging effort by Wayfinder. He bumped into a Colin Tizard horse who looks like he's definitely going to be one to follow too, but I just thought this horse might have a little bit more scope about him moving forward, and that Colin Tizard horse had won a previous race at Newton Abbot, so I think that was a good nice opener for his account to the season, and he's definitely going to be a horse I'm going to be keeping on side. The other horse on Thursday that caught my eye ran in a novice hurdle at Raaeq for Kayley Woollacott, and that is Nickelsonthedime. Now this horse, we've seen him, if you're a massive fan of the point-to-point scene, we've seen him a few times over the point division, and he's distinguished himself with some ability. He's shown a good level of form, he's won a couple of races, and last time, like I said, we saw him at Raaeq, he made his debut under rules when he was a big price on the day, and I saw a couple of people, I don't know who it was on Racing TV that day, said he looked well in the paddock, and he definitely ran a really encouraging race on his debut under rules to finish in second place at a big price. I think he was around about 16 to 1, so he was definitely an each way player in the day. But the way this horse caught the eye was the way how he finished his race. Now that race at Raaeq was over 2.5 miles, and a lot of his best form, like I said, in the point division, come over 3 miles. So you get the impression that he was probably running over the wrong trip, and he was badly outpaced at one point during the race, especially as well when he was coming into the home straight. And I just think the way how he showed an ability to have a strong turn of foot in a race like this is definitely going to be an advantage for him, definitely under rules this season. And Katy Woollacott as well, she's not had too many good horses. Obviously she had Lecoq, who used to be trained by her husband, or in the name of her husband, Richard Woollacott, but apart from Lecoq, she hasn't had too many horses. Maybe the King's Rich, she has not had too many horses that have been maybe of this calibre or got a bit of an exciting profile behind them. So I do think this horse definitely might be one to follow this season and could be a standard bearer for the stable, and we might be able to see him. I'm not sure he's maybe up to graded or listed novice hurdles later on in the season, but I think once he gets a handicap mark he could definitely be one to improve through the handicap divisions in the staying distances this season. So Nickelsonthedime, I thought he was really eye-catching at Raaeq on Thursday, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he progresses this season under rules. Now a horse that really impressed me on Friday at Fontwell was Lord Baddesley for Chris Gordon. I thought he did the job very nicely. Now we hadn't seen him too much on a race course before, we'd only seen him a couple of times in some bumper races, but he made his hurdle debut at Fontwell on Friday and he absolutely blitzed the field. Now he beat Olly Murphy's horse in that race, who was well regarded of in the market. That horse, Phyllis I think it was, for Olly Murphy, was 4 to 5 on, so Lord Baddesley did really well to beat him, and he beat him quite comprehensively, and the pair were miles clear of everything else in the race that day. Now I don't know how strong the race was, but the way he went through it suggested that he could be a nice prospect, and Chris Gordon has done fairly well in recent seasons with some of his novice hurdlers. Highway 101, before he became a fair chaser, was a good novice hurdler. I remember he finished second in one of the big novice hurdle races at Sandown a couple of years ago. Obviously as well, he had his first graded success last season with Highway 102. So he's definitely a trainer that I always say he's underrated, Chris Gordon. I've been to his yard a couple of times when I was a university student. Did a couple of films with him for my uni work, and also as well I went to his yard earlier this season and was able to speak about some of the horses with him. And this Lord Baddesley is definitely, I think, going to be a horse to follow this season. Maybe not sure he could be graded class, but again, I think he could be a handicapper. Once he gets a handicap mark, we could definitely see him win a nice pot or two later on in the season. Maybe a race like the Imperial Cup would be a nice little race for him, but I could definitely see him going very well in some competitive handicaps later on in the season. So that's Lord Baddesley. The other horse that caught my eye at Funwell on Friday was Brunel for Olly Murphy. Now Brunel has been a horse I've always had a lot of time for. I remember when he won on bumper debut at Carlisle. I remember backing him that day. And he did the job really nicely, he really fought gamely. But then ever since then, I don't think he's ever lived up quite to expectations, or maybe the hopes they originally had for him. He never really was able to cut it as a hurdler. However, last time we saw him over hurdles, he won a nice race when he absolutely bolted up at Musselburgh on the Scottish champion weekend there. But yeah, Brunel, if you actually look at some of the comments in the past about him, Olly Murphy always said he was going to be a chaser, and it was his chase debut at Funwell on Friday, and I just thought he did the job very nicely. He jumped well, and in the end he was just out battled by Kulani, who, to be fair, had the better position going up the hill in the finish. If you have seen Funwell, especially when it's a slog and the rain they had over the weekend, you always want to be at that rail, and it's always hard to come in wide from the chase course up that hill, and it normally favours to be on the inside, and that's exactly what happened to Brunel. I don't think he got the best passage up the straight, and I think if he'd been on the inside, he probably would have won and just nicked it from Kulani. But that race was over 2.5 miles, and I think Brunel is a horse that probably would want slightly further, and he probably will make up into a 3-mile chaser in time. But I think this is a season where we could really see him come of age, and I think Brunel is definitely one that could even maybe mix it up in graded chasers later on in the season. So Brunel, a nice horse, hopefully, for novice chasers this season, and he's definitely one I'm looking forward to seeing next time out. Now, my only flat selection in this video is also going to come on Friday, and this horse ran at Ascot. Now, a lot of people would definitely have put this horse into their trackers, and that was Raaeq, or I hope that's how you pronounce it right, for Brian Meehan in the colours of Sheikh Hamdan Al Maktoum. Now, this Raaeq, if you didn't see his performance at Ascot on Friday, I definitely recommend you go back and watch the race replay, because he absolutely bolted up in this field. Admittedly, it was soft ground, but the way he handled it suggests that if he ever runs in a group race, he's definitely going to be a major player. He won that race off a mark of 97, and God knows what the handicap is going to give him now. He's definitely going to be in the hundreds at least. I had a look at maybe some potential future entries with him. He's not in the QE2 stakes. I don't know if they would have to supplement him for that. I don't know if Connections would like to have a go, but if he did turn up, he might be able to run a big race at a massive price. But possibly the Portland handicap could be where he goes. That's over a mile. Normally, if I remember, it normally closes off Champions Day, which is only a couple of weeks away, and if the ground's on the testing side, he would definitely be a major player. I'm not sure what his handicap mark would be, but yeah, I think he's a really nice horse, and he's going to be a horse that you probably want to follow next season. But I think you probably will be able to go on any ground, but when there's a bit of cut in the ground, I think he could be literally a cut above the rest. And I was really taken with the manner of victory. It was a nice handicap for the grade, beat a few nice yardsticks in there, and I think Raaeq is definitely going to be a horse you want to be following next season. Now for Saturday, we go back to Funwell with another Chris Gordon horse that caught my eye, and that was Top Man, who was another horse making his chase debut. Now Top Man, again, had shown a little bit of ability, especially as well over hurdles, where he won a couple of novice hurdles. I remember he won a race at Plumpton and showed 1 or 2 bits of form in some better races, but his best form had always come with a bit of a dig in the ground. I remember, like I said, he bolted up at Plumpton one start on heavy ground, and I think that's what definitely saw him to good effect at Fontwell on Saturday. Now, we've already said they had a lot of rain in the ground there, and he was able to use his experience on that ground to good effect. And the way he jumped throughout the race as well, I thought was really encouraging, considering that was the first time we ever saw him over the fences. And I just like the way he went through it. And like I said, Chris Gordon, I always feel he is an underrated trainer. His horses always, to be fair, do probably get punted at the likes of Fontwell and Plumpton, because people know that's where he has the majority of his success. But I think at at courses like Sandown and Kempton, where he'll likely send quite a lot of these horses later on in the season, I could definitely see them being bigger prices on their first starts, and maybe developing into horses like on the slopes last season that did really well for Chris, that went through the handicaps really well. And I could just see this horse being in a similar mould. I think they always had quite high hopes for him, if I remember. He's in the same colours as another horse that they own called Mellow Ben, the Broadsword group. And I just think that this horse will definitely see a lot more of him as a chaser. And I was really impressed by his chase debut on Saturday. The final horse on Saturday that caught my eye was staying at Fontwell in the bumper with a horse called Bumpy Johnson for David Pipe in the colours of Brocade Racing. Now, it's hard to say what this horse is going to do and where they're going to go with him on their next start. Is he maybe going to make the decision to go over hurdles? Are they going to keep him in bumpers? I have the slight feeling, if they haven't said already, that he might stick it in bumpers. And David Pipe has often got a good record in bumpers, and the race they always seem to like to target is a race at Ascot, which is just before Christmas. They have a listed bumper. He won it last year with Israel Champ, and he's won it a couple of times in the past with some nice sorts. And I just think that this could potentially be the long-term target. Who knows exactly where we'll see him next, but Bumpy Johnson, I think he's definitely going to be a horse you want to keep on side. He did the job very well. Beat a fair yardstick, who I think who came from the Chris Gordon yard, who will be a nice horse. And Bumpy Johnson, I think as well, to be named after Richard Johnson, I presume that's who they've named it after. I think this Bumpy Johnson, I think he's going to go on to some nice things in his career, and I like to see how he is plotted for the rest of his campaign. Finally, moving on to Sunday, and there was some good national hunt action on Sunday. And the first of our Eyecatchers on Sunday comes from Kelso with a horse that we actually put up on my YouTube channel, and that was I Write for Harriet Graham. Now, Harriet Graham, a lot of people might not know who she is. She's actually the clerk of the course. I think she's the clerk of the course for a couple of race courses in Scotland. I forget which ones now, but she is a clerk of the course. But in her spare time, or away from being a clerk of the course, she does have a few nice horses in her yard. And this I Write has been her flag bearer the last couple of seasons. Ran in some good hurdle races, and last season took to chasing quite well. He won a 2-runner race at Newcastle, beating Mulcahy's Hill very convincingly that day. And then Connections decided to take a chance on him in the RSA at Cheltenham when he finished in 5th place. And despite being well beaten, I think he ran okay for a long way. And they probably always knew that he was never going to be there or thereabouts, but they thought they should give him a crack. But I think for this season, he's definitely going to be one you want to follow in handicaps. And I thought he made a really nice seasonal reappearance. Arguably probably over a trip that was shorter than ideal. He was running in the race just over 2 miles, and he probably just lacked the speed or the turn of gears to be able to live with the likes of Natwell, who really is a 2-mile specialist. But the way he jumped and the way he travelled suggested that that was a nice seasonal opener for him. He ran off a mark of 146. He could probably potentially maybe get up to 3 miles later in the season. I think 2.5 would definitely be a nice move for him on his next start. And I think again, we haven't seen the best of him yet. I think he's definitely going to have a nice pot in him. Not sure if he'll be up to maybe graded company, but I think he could definitely land a nice handicap later on this season. Maybe he might be aimed at some of the Cheltenham races over 2.5. Some of the 2-mile races. Is it the Bet Victor Gold Cup, a Caspian Caviar Gold Cup? Those kind of races I could definitely see him going for later on in the season. And I think he's definitely going to be a name you want to be keeping on side. Now to our last eye catcher in this video, and that is Monsieur Lecoq, who ran in the novice chase at Uttoxeter. Now, all eyes were on the Stayers Hurdle 4 from last year, Emerton, who I did think ran a really nice race. He jumped well in my opinion, and I think he was just done, A, probably for a lack of fitness, and B, probably was running over a slightly shorter than ideal trip. He's definitely probably going to want 3 miles, and I think it was just a nice pipe opener for him, and I think we'll see him move on to bigger and better things later on in the season. But going back to Monsieur Lecoq, I think he jumped really well in that race for a long way, and if you go back through some of his form, especially over the last couple of years, he's ran really well in some nice handicaps, especially at places like Sandown, and also as well last season he was seen winning the Welsh Champion Hurdle. Now, he wasn't able to maybe run at a particularly great height in like a graded or listed hurdle. I saw him, I think at Cheltenham last year, run once or twice, not some bad races. I think he ran a fair race in the International, if I remember thinking, staying on really strongly in the closing stages. But I think going over fences could be the making of him. I don't think he quite gets 2.5 miles. I think the drop back in distance to 2 miles will really suit him. And I think in maybe a race later on in the season over 2 miles, he's definitely going to be a novice you want to keep on side. And I think maybe we could see him, possibly you might see him win a week grade 3 or something, but I don't think he'll be quite up to grade 1 level. But Monsieur Lecoq, I think it was a nice chase debut, and I'm expecting a lot more from him later on this season. Now, that is it for the Eyecatchers of the week. Remember, if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. Also as well, if you're not a subscriber to my YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe by clicking the subscribe button below. If you want to follow me on social media, you can do, where my handle is @LuckyLoaders15. And if you want to find out a little bit more about myself, my website is www.chrisloaderracing.co.uk. So please gamble responsibly, and we'll be seeing you soon.